Mortgage Coach Friday Mastermind. I'm Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach. Thanks for making time for us. We're going to have a conversation around a lot of things today, but the central focus is that this is the end of the first week of Q4 of 2019. And there's means a couple of things. It means one, there needs to be a lot of intentionality in terms of how do we close the year strong. And part of closing the year strong is not only optimizing production and lifestyle, but it's also preparing to go to the next level in 2020. And I just think that there is a difference in the way that mortgage professionals close strong and kick off 2020 in a big way. I'm going to share some of my thoughts on that in the second half of this call. But in the first half, we've got Jen Duplessis. What's up, Jen? It's good to have you.
Hey, hi, everybody. I missed you all. Missed you all in September. I'm so happy to be back because it's intentional, right? I'm getting back on track too.
Good. Well, it's good to have you on the call. And then my wingman, Todd Bookspan, and I, who are also a reminder to everybody going to Sales Mastery, we are hosting a champagne toast at the tequila bar. I don't know, Todd.
What? We're having champagne and tequila?
I know.
Well, I mean, come on, this is our third annual. The first year we did it at an inside bar that was kind of appropriate. And last year we switched to the tequila bar because we had so many people there. And we're going back this year. So those of you who were there last year, same place. But make sure to comment in the post that we posted in the group so we know what size group to expect so we can make sure that we take enough land in that patio to make sure that we got you all accommodated.
Yeah, no doubt. And Todd, I did something that I posted it as an event this morning also.
Nice.
So in our group, you can actually, I'm coming, do let us know so that we can plan who's coming. Last year, I mean, it was a who's who of the mortgage industry party. So it was a really fun event. Hopefully the weather is like it was last year and we see you guys. So as Todd said, post in the comments who's going and, let us know in the group who's going. So Todd, I'm going to hand it off to you to have a conversation with Jen around, closing strong, kicking it off big next year.
No, I appreciate that, Dave. And, it's so fun to get to catch up with Jen. And, she and I run into each other a few times a year at events where we both speak. And it's always fun for us to catch up in person after all these webinars that we do here together. And, we joke about the fact that we've done 100 plus webinars and we've probably only seen each other in person a few times. And
4 times.
I would say a couple of things. Really, me, right? With Win by Noon, we're all around planning around each quarter. And I think that the biggest thing, as Jen and I were talking last week in Tampa where we spoke, was, how are people launching into this quarter, right? You've got to wrap up last quarter, and then you've got to launch into this quarter. And Jen said, hey, I can't wait. We'll be on I've got to present her an award. Congratulations again. She won a Women of Vision Award. And I was fortunate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I forgot. Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, too. That was so nice. It was nice to be presented, an award from somebody I actually know.
Well, no, that was my honor. It was my honor. But we were kind of talking about it like, hey, we could talk through our takeaways and implementation. And, you're such a great coach around it. What are you thinking? How are you talking to people as we come out of Q3 and jump into Q4?
Yeah, one of the things I just want to backtrack on is, before we start talking about the implementation, is that I have never run my practice on a calendar year. I've always ran it on a fiscal year. And I just want to share that. And that's not to say that everybody has to change that, but I'm of the opinion, because our sales process is so long, right, that the activities, and I always say this, your future is a series of nows. So what are you doing right now to ensure that you're going to have closings in December and January? And when we're focused on the production that we're doing now to try to finish out our year strong, right, which is fine. But when we're only focused on that and we're not focused on having our plan in play and already getting the actions in play for that, so if you're going to have a seminar, if you're going to have a business planning class for realtors, if you're going to, start off with a mastermind or book club, or, hire a person, get the wheels in turning right now. Get the word out that you're going to be putting all these things on, because you want that activity to not be diminished. That's what happens when we have the ups and downs in our business, right? So you want the activity level to remain high as you're still trying to be strong. So I've always been of the opinion that my business plan needs to be finished October 1st for the next year, because that way I'm excited about putting some things into action while I'm trying to finish out the year strong. So I just want to say that, you know, you can't, I don't feel you can, or let me just say this, please consider putting your business plan together before January 1st.
Well, I totally agree with that, Jen. But so when you're saying on a fiscal year, your fiscal year ends the end of September, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yep. I do fiscal year September. So my whole practice was based on September 30th, you know, October 1st to September 30th. And that's how, and because that way I could finish strong, but I'd also start strong.
Well, was that because your market was cyclical where it died off at that time and then gave you time to plan, or was that just how you would coach anyone regardless of their market?
No, I think that what happens in January is that a lot of people, you know, reset, but they also, I mean, we know, you know, I've said this for years and years, you know, are you a 10-1 loan officer? Are you in the business for 10 years, 1 year at a time? Or are you growing every single year, right? And, or 21 loan officer, 20 years, 1 year at a time. And so I feel that while everyone else is resetting, including realtors, they kind of disappear for the holidays and then they jump back in and then they want to, you know, start working. So it's not a regional thing based on weather or anything like that. It's just how people perform. They tend to sort of fall off the face of the earth during the holidays. And I want to keep that engagement already. I want to.
All right, Jen's getting a little
strong.
You were getting a little wonky there for a second, Jen.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. So, you know, that's why everyone has to really push to end the year strong, because the beginning of the year, you know, I talk about rumble strips all the time when you're driving down the road, those rumble strips, you know, and really having a good business plan, something that you're implementing, you know, if you drive off the road, it goes brrr, and you go, oh yeah, that's right, I need to be on track. So I'd rather be on track early and exceed my expectations than discover, you know, in the the third quarter that, oh my gosh, I'm behind. I have a lot of work to do. So I'm pushing for the end of the year to get to President's Club and pushing, you know, if you can get to President's Club in month 5, wow, right? The rest of the year is great. So that's the only reason why I was saying that. But yeah, I think implementation is one of the hardest things. You know, you come back with droves and droves of notes, great ideas. And, you know, especially now it's the season, right? September and October is conference season. You're getting all this data and there's so much of it to dissect. And I would just encourage people to really think about what they have to do. You know, it's fun to do a lot of things, but do you really have to do all of it? Is it really going to push your business forward? And there's an exercise I have my clients do, which is stop, start, keep, and improve. You know, to make a list of things you should stop doing this year that you did. You know, stop getting up late, stop, you know, letting things slip through the cracks, whatever it is, right? Start doing things that you know will move the needle forward on your business. Keep doing some things, and then what should you improve on, right? And so if you can layer those on top of all the great ideas that you've heard at all these different conferences and ready to implement, I think that you'd be able to sort that out a little closer. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. I mean, my biggest thing, I find people, they don't suffer from lack of ideas, right? It's the
right.
You know, it's not starvation, right? It's indigestion. It's how do you take those ideas going? So I taught a class yesterday on implementation with my new Win by Noon implementation tool. I'll throw it in down below for anyone who wants it. And I'll also be throwing that webinar up on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. But ultimately, my belief is, Jen, and I would love to know what your thoughts are on it, is that you really have to pick 2 or 3 things at a time at the most to implement on. The less, the better. And make sure that you actually lay out all the plans, pick a due date, and then lay out each step, whether you're doing it, whether you're going to delegate it, to make sure that it gets done. Because that's what I find, right? So if I'm at Sales Mastery in 10 days, you know, I'm going to leave there with 100 different ideas. And then I've got to figure out, of all those, what does I have to record all the ideas, because if I don't know what those ideas were, then I'm going to forget, right? I mean, it's likely that I'll forget. And then number two is I've got to prioritize them. And then number three is, you know, pick which ones I'm going to execute on. How would you do that differently, or how would you sharpen that?
No, it's exactly how I would do it. You know, I do something called a parking lot all year long in my business plan. And, you know, when I hear a great idea, I don't want to forget it, but I'm not ready to implement it. You know, it's not something that was part of my plan, unless it was something that, you know, I know emphatically I can get a result very, very quickly on. And so no, I would put it in a parking lot. And that's what's so great about looking at your business plan, you know, and really working on a business plan for a for a full month. Because then you can go back and look at these ideas and say, you know, is this something that I have the utility for, you know, either financially or with your team or whatever the case may be. Do I even have the utility to be able to implement this this thing? So for one example, like I was just talking to someone yesterday, I was coaching, and we're talking about they want to put on an event, you know, in March or something like that. And, you know, and I said, this is a good time to talk about it. One, you have accountability because you're telling people about it. Two, you know, find out who your sponsors are, where you're going to hold it, you know, all the intimate details of putting that together so that it comes to the realization, right? And rather than saying, oh, that was a really cool idea, maybe next year I'll do it again, right? And so I think that falls into all the categories of whether you're doing activities, whether you want to hire someone and you need to carve out a new job title, whether you want to go after a new niche in your business. It takes time, you know, to sit down and look at these things, and I wouldn't take them lightly. I mean, you know, you got to know the money that's involved in it as well. And you know, that's something I think that we fail to do, is that we just spend money left, right, and sideways because these really cool ideas come up. So I do think it's just important to dissect everything exactly like you said.
Well, you know, it's interesting too. So going back to Tampa, you know, one of the big conversations there that people got excited about was a conversation that Dave and I have had here, you know, all year. In fact, for the last 3 years that we've had this group, we've had the conversation around annual reviews. Setting up your clients for success with the potential, you know, recession that's coming up. And I really think that that's got to be a big part of any loan officer's plan for 2020 is, you know, even if you feel like you've missed a little bit of the wave here, that there's going to be a potential, you know, second wave, especially for the people who couldn't refinance now or didn't need to refinance now.
Right.
And how to set up business. Or are you coaching people to build that into their business plan for 2020?
Oh my gosh, that's all we're talking about. Because, you know, I'm very big on mortgages under management. I mean, this is one of the biggest things I ever did, you know, and I've had many conversations, and I think Dave's interviewed me a couple times on this. Mortgages under management is the key. You know, we tend to neglect and not nurture our database all the time. And it is the number one thing for me in my coaching program is to get you back in touch with your database, you know, to make sure that you're nurturing everybody. And we have tons of conversations about how to do that for people that haven't talked to people for 15 years, right? And it's really frustrating for me. I don't understand why, you know, you work so hard to get this business, right, from somebody, and then you just let them go bye-bye and break up with you. And I don't understand that. It's crazy. So yeah, we focus on mortgages under management. The bottom line is this, and I mentioned this, maybe a month or two ago, we were talking to you, and we were talking to maybe Josh was on the call, you know, that when we have conversations with our clients, we have to make it very clear that we're the lender. Your servicer's calling you and pecking at you, you know, to do a refinance, but as your lender, and I'm sure that your servicer's doing that, but as your lender, I want to have a conversation with you, right? And
I think that's critical. Let me just pause you for 1 sec so that everyone knows it, as I'm doing the Facebook Live thing over here. The key is that, I mean, that's the number one script. There was a comment in there week before last, someone talking about how to script that, but yeah, you've got to lay that out, because the funny part is I think a lot of people are cherry picking who they're calling, those of you who are doing annual mortgage reviews. And I've got a rate that is below market on my house. I've got an arm that I got years ago that's super low. And I got a call from my servicer letting me know that they identified an opportunity for me to save money. It was a great script. In fact, they probably stole it from someone here in the mortgage coach community. And other people fall for that, right? And so if you're not having the conversation with your clients, then, I think that's a challenge.
Yeah. And so, again, and it really does separate you when you can call and say, your servicer's been in touch with you. I'm sure they have, but as your lender, I want to have that conversation with you. And, you bring up a really good point. The servicer is, not looking at what the rate is. They're just trying to get an opportunity. And we need to be doing that too. And what we're doing is we're self-selecting. It's really odd because we don't like when people rate shop us, but we're rate shopping our clients in reverse. We're saying you have a 3.5% raise, so obviously you don't want to refinance, but that's not the case. And it's been proven over and over, that clients have needs, that they have. And, it's sad because I know that a lot of people are getting a lot of business for refinances, but imagine how many more you could have if you didn't do that selection, that process that way. And if you had phone calls with them, you could get a lion's share of the business. And the likelihood is their other lender is not doing the phone calls and the annual reviews, and they're losing business to a servicer. So you could get their friend's business as well. So, that I think is one thing. If you had one thing that you could implement this year that you're not doing, and again, go back to stop, start, keep, and improve, I would say, make sure that you've got your hands around your mortgages under management program in whatever effect you're going to do it. Mine's not just an annual review. It's more intense than that, and just start with an annual review.
Well,
and it doesn't have to be in there.
I love it. Jenny Van just commented that she started reconnecting with past clients and feel overall the reconnection has been great. And she has refinances and a new pre-approval, so it works, right? And we hear that story over and over again. And I love what you just said, Jen, that we are rate shopping our clients in reverse, right? We're scared to talk to them. And I've been talking a lot about training my brother-in-law lately. And again, he's jumping on with people who aren't ready to refinance now, but he set up the next refinance. He set up the target rate. He's setting up, the value that their house needs to be at in order to eliminate mortgage insurance, all those things. And it's just building connection. And he's not even going to get their loan. He's just got the right scripts because, well, I gave him to him.
Yeah, right. Well, and again, this gets back to that mortgages under management that we had talked about some time ago, is that, I built my 3,800 person database on asking people who's managing their mortgage, because when there's refis out there, there's no reason that you should just go, you can or have to go just to your database. You could go to anybody you're talking to, networking and whatnot. And saying, who's managing your mortgage? Is your servicer getting in touch with you? I'd love to be your lender. I'd love to have a conversation with you, do an analysis with you, see if now is the right time, or maybe a couple months from now would be a better time. So I think we just think narrow sometimes. It's a refi boom. Maybe they'll all call me. Well, that's nice if they do, but you can widen that if you call them. You can widen it if you don't reverse rate shop them. And you can widen it if you ask for referrals. And you can widen it even more if you ask for conversations with people that you network with.
All right, so let's come up with some action plans and kind of put a bow on this one, and so we can move on to some other ways for people to to implement. So we talked about business plan. Get your business plan done now. Don't wait till December 31st or January 1st, right? Get a head start on that. We talked about the fact that people are neglecting their database. What's the first thing that you're going to tell someone to do, and then I'll tell you what the first thing I would tell someone to do is.
Yeah, the first thing that I would tell someone to do is, at least right now, for me, I'm a big alphabet kind of girl. So this week is O and N. This week is N, and next week is O. If the first thing you did to make it super easy is just go into your database and call all of your past clients that have the last name O and the last name N, and just finish up this week and next week strong and start there. You could also start, if you wanted to, if you haven't done this, call the people that you closed 6 months and a day ago and start having the conversations with them too, because those are closer closings. You're going to feel more comfortable talking to them. And once you have the confidence, you can start reaching out to your other past clients. But those people who just closed, they're getting calls from other people. If you're not in front of your competition and in front of your clients, your competition is. So that would be the driver for me, is get on the phone.
Yeah, and I'd throw
No
something in there.
emails.
I'd throw something in there. If I would be calling all the people who've closed in the last 6 months too, and make sure that you're building into part of your closing process, this idea of their pile of junk mail that they're going to get. I collected, I probably have in a folder sitting around here of the stuff that I get, and I haven't gotten a loan for a number of years. And it's really comes back to this whole idea of warning them about the fact that all the life insurance opportunities and the, we'll save you money on your loan, that makes
Credit,
it look like it came from you and your company. And be crystal clear. I learned that from Lori Richardson. She told me once that, she hadn't got a hold of a person in a while and ended up getting a hold of him finally because she called him every year, but they just had never connected. And he had said to her, well, I've been waiting for you. You said if it didn't actually have your logo on the outside of the envelope to throw it away. And she ended up getting, he ended up wanting to sell. So it was a buy and a sell referral to the realtor and then a loan for her. They connected at the right time. And so you've got to make sure you're educating your clients on that so that they're not getting sucked into somebody else's web. And then we're still seeing it. I've said it on this call before. We're seeing it on our team where, in between, no one was doing reviews because I wasn't there. The team dropped the ball. And now my brother-in-law is doing these reviews, it's magic. People are like, oh, can you do a review on this loan? And we look at the loan and it's the servicer who redid it or somebody else who redid it, an online advertiser. And they stole that loan away. And now guess what? My brother-in-law is stealing it back, or he's at least setting up for the next one, depending on what they did. And I'll tell you this, the loans that people got were terrible. A lot of them were, they don't know what they don't know what they got. They think they got something different. And so there's a lot of opportunity to pick up the phone. So yeah, I agree with your action plan, pick up the phone and start calling people. And I think those of you who are thinking, well, who do I call? What do I say? You can always just start it off, I think, one of two ways. One way is, just, hey, I'm sure you've heard all the news of the Fed. I just want to check in and make sure you understand what's going on with interest rates. The other way is you can start with an apology. Gosh, you know what, Jen, it was so great when I did your loan 2 years ago and I apologize. I haven't kept in touch. Hey, have you heard what the Fed is doing? And that's, I think that's why people have call reluctance is you feel like you let the person down. And the funny part is if you didn't make a commitment to them, they don't feel let down. So you did let them down.
That's true. That's true. And you know what else too is every time that you call, they're happy to hear from you. They totally are happy to hear from you. And, I love what Michelle said months and months and months and months ago, maybe even a year ago that we've been doing this. And she said, when you call, you say, hey, it's Michelle. I did your loan. Don't say the company because you may have already moved. Hi, it's Michelle. I did your loan. And a couple of years ago, and I bet you didn't expect to hear from me today, huh? Because I haven't called you, right? And so just make light of it. I want to just say this. Remember that what we do is service, not sales. We are serving our clients. This is a service call. And how dare you not call your client and take care of them because you're afraid of that phone call. It's a service call. It's not a sales call. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you and answer any of your questions.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? And, go back to what I said, where my servicer was calling me. And they're not calling me. They have no relationship with me, right? They didn't originate the mortgage, but it's their job, right? They feel like they have to do it. And so I would tell you all that that's your job, that you need to prioritize that time. So even where Jen and I started with taking action on your ideas is at some point you've got to make a decision, right? Dave and I did a call before with Andrew Paul on setting the standard, right? You have to have a standard for yourself. And I would just tell you, you've got to pick a number of calls you're committed to make a week, a number of actual annual mortgage reviews and TCAs you're willing to make in a week. And so, certainly from a win by noon perspective, that's why we put that in the planner so that you could record those activities and make sure that you're on track to get more business from doing that. And oftentimes I find people like, I don't really use that part of the planner. And they still have that built into their mortgage practice. However, I would encourage you to say, gosh, you know what, that's going to be my standard going forward. I'm going to start making these calls. And, it could also be as simple as taking the number of closed loans you have, dividing it by the number of days you're going to work between now and the end of the year, and then just taking whatever that number is and making sure that you're committed to that number of dials every day. And, in the end, I know that that's going to even out your next year, because next year is definitely going to get a little bit scary for some of you who haven't kept your purchase business up this year.
Yeah. And I just went to a conference, with Brian Stevens talking, and one of the things that he said, how Warren Buffett says, do what everybody else isn't doing, he always goes the opposite way. And Brian was saying this too. He's saying, everybody's going macro right now. Everybody's doing videos, and we talk about it here, right? Doing videos and casting a big net and going to a bunch of people, and definitely we need to be doing that, and we're all doing that, and that's great. But there is a point where you have to go micro, and you have to go micro when it comes to really having relationships with your clients. It can't be macro, you know, for the long term. So I would just say, you know, think about, you know, doing that. And the last thing is, you know, and I know, you know, Win by Noon will help with this, but you've got to know your numbers. You've got to know exactly how many referrals do you need per week to get to where you want to go every single week, and then align those activities with those numbers. So if you need 15 referrals, you need 3 a day. What are you going to do every single day to ensure that you get 3 referrals?
Well, and I think that's critical. So those of you just joining in, of course, we've got the one and only Jen Duplessis back with us, which is awesome. And she's got an appointment in 5 minutes. So she and I are going to wrap up here, and then Dave's going to come in and give his observations from what he's seen out in the field as he's been traveling around and speaking at events and attending events. So that's going to be exciting. You know, I think you kind of hit the head on the nail, right?
The nail on the head.
Whatever that I'm supposed to say is.
Yeah.
Todd. I didn't have enough coffee this morning, apparently. You know, I just think it's a matter of, you know, people knowing their numbers. And, you know, of course, you know, knowing your numbers is kind of my love language. I feel like that's the challenge is to figure out what are the numbers, you know, what do you need in order to get the results you want? And then 2, making that your standard and committing to doing it. Because that's where I think people fall short. It's one thing to know, okay, well, you know what, it takes me 3 applications to get a closed transaction. I need to have 2 leads to get to one application. I need to talk to 5 people to get 1 lead. You know, I need to dial 10 people to talk to 5, you know, to talk to 5 people to get 1 lead. You just have to know what those numbers look like. And then it has to be your standard, and you have to be committed to it. And you have to make sure that you get it done. If those of you who've been to Sales Master before might remember a name. Gosh, it just tells me I got to pick up the phone and call him because he's here in my market. Mike Metz, and he got up on the stage at Sales Master and talked about his clicker, and he clicks the clicker, and until he got a certain number of calls done, until he took a certain number of applications, he didn't leave his office. And guess what? He was the number 1 person in Maricopa County in the Phoenix, Arizona metro area for years based on the fact that that's what he did. And I think now his son runs his business, and he sits on the beach in Costa Rica because he made so much money with that commitment, because he set a standard that most people didn't. So how do you want to wrap up your last few minutes, Jen?
Yeah, I was going to say it's just creating sticky habits, right? Habits that stick. And once you create that habit, it just becomes the standard, like you're saying. And, you know, as we go into the new year, it's going to be a challenge, because one of the things and so I love what you said, you know, 10, 15 minutes ago, is pick one, 2, or 3 things, right? Because when you think about a new year, you can't stop smoking, lose weight, meet more people, go on more vacation. You can't do all of those things. And that's why people fail so much in, you know, their New Year's resolutions. So think about this as a New Year's resolution, that you're going to do 1, 2, or 3 things. And maybe you do 1 thing for the first quarter, and maybe you add the second thing the second quarter, so that you guarantee that it sticks and becomes a standard, rather than finding yourself at this time next year saying, you know, I didn't implement anything, and I was that 10-1 loan officer who hit the reset button every year.
Love it. Love it. Well, I know you got to jump in a moment. So I know Dave will pop back on here, and he'll probably have some brilliance and maybe even a question if he jumps on before you leave. Anything, Dave, you want to ask Jen before she takes off?
Jen, I thought you crushed it. You brought up a lot of really great points. It was good to have you on today's call. Anything you want to share before you jump?
No. I just want to say, you know, that I love this community. I'm so excited that I'm part of this community, and I love learning from everybody. And I just say that, you know, if you don't find yourself on this call and interacting as often as you want to, then make that a standard so that you can grow your business next year.
Cool. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you being here. Well, I'll let you go. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right,
bye-bye.
Guys. Bye-bye. So if you're on the call and you have a question live, you can ask Todd either in Zoom, Todd or me, or in our Facebook group. And if you're listening to the recording and you have a question or a comment, share it. So I'm not going to completely transition, but I do want to open the topic of what should you be working on. And I spoke with Bill Hart yesterday. He spoke for 2 hours doing a keynote. I did a TED Talk, and then I interviewed two of the top producers for Gem Mortgage. These two top producers, close in excess of 300 million a year in production. I mean, we're talking iconic leaders. And Bill Hart's presentation was about, the way he kind of framed it was, hey, I've been coaching for a long time. I think Bill's done over 10,000 hours of coaching. And I've seen some trends with loan officers. And in this presentation, he said that are the top 1%. But I took it and I framed it around people doing over 100 loans a year. And there's 6 things that they do. So one, Bill and I, after I spoke, he spoke, while everybody else was at lunch, we did a little 13-minute video from stage. I guess it looks like it's trending. We've got like 131 likes, 61 comments. Todd, have you by any chance had a chance to check this out?
I saved it and said I'm going to watch it, but I haven't. And now I'm feeling like I'm ill prepared for our conversation, but it'll be on my to-do list for my drive to Disneyland this afternoon.
Yeah, well, you'll be fine. I mean, and I want to talk about these 6 things, and I added a 7th. So at the end, I threw in number 7, and I do recommend you watch this little exchange between Bill and I. I did think it was good content and it was fun, but here's the punchline, guys. Here's the 6 things, and I thought, Todd, it'd be fun for at least a few minutes to talk about these, because Jen, Todd, they talked about specific things that you should be doing. And at the end of the day, strategy matters. Like, doing the right things that are going to deliver the best results matter. And so I would propose to everybody, we're a whole quarter to where you need to kick off 2020, that you start by doing a SWOT analysis. And for anybody that doesn't know what a SWOT analysis, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. I think I put those letters out of order.
I wasn't going to bust your chops for that. And remember too, so strengths and weaknesses is internal, and opportunities and threats is external.
Yeah. And I just, showed everybody that, yes, I am dyslexic. I do not think in linear left to right ways.
Now I feel bad for making fun of you.
No, it's not making fun of me. It's but I would recommend that you do this, and you do it around these 6 things, and the 6 things that Bill proposed to everyone is get clear. And, are you clear about your mission, your vision, your goals? And I called out the fact that I did this top producer interview afterwards, and I asked the top producers, hey, how do you start the first 30 seconds to a minute with a client? And how do you start the first, 30 seconds with a realtor? These guys were clear. Their value prop was clear. How they differentiate was clear. How they engage and get that client talking is clear. And it's consistent. You can just tell they do the same thing every time. And so clear. And then I just did this post. What are your biggest strengths? What is your biggest weakness? So start off, and I'd love for you guys to, do this in our community, and just top of mind. Don't overthink this. Just out of these 6 things, and you don't have to answer it while we're on the call, but by the end of the day, number 1 is my biggest strength. Number 4 is my biggest weakness. Share that. But whether you share it in the group, get clear, like SWOT analysis, and do it around these concepts. Time blocking, and Todd, there were so many times where it was like win by noon, like, are you doing these things? And Bill, he gave you a shout out, would not be doing it justice. He talked about win by noon and how the most successful people, they're getting the most important things done by noon. They're documenting it. They're tracking it. They're doing those things.
Well, let me give Bill a shout out on that too, because Bill came up with something that he calls the by noon effect, and it's such a great thing. I would Google it. It's probably in here somewhere from before, but watch when Bill talks about it, because he does such a good job of why it's so important to do the most important things first, right? So that's, that's really the key part of getting clear, right? I'm pointing to my computer screen. I probably should look at the camera. And just know, keep in mind, Bill's coached some of the best folks in this community. And I'm not talking about just me. He coached me for 4 years, and we've been friends for a decade since then. And so I feel like even now he's still a mentor who I call upon quite often. But, Josh Metal, Lori Richardson, John Downs, you name it, the who's who list of people who are key contributors in this community would all credit a lot of who they are and where they became, not just as loan originators, but as humans to Coach Bill. So, can never say enough. And I'm super grateful to hear that he talked about Win by Noon. So thanks, my friend.
Yeah, and my point wasn't, that he talked about Win by Noon. It was that Win by Noon is a big part of that. It's something we talk about in our community. Todd, if you don't mind sharing a link to the Noon Effect in chat, post call, good reading, and it really helps build that why, generating leads. And Todd and I can spend a lot of time talking about each of these. I wanted to put it out there, like in the context of today's call, for you to, one, listen to that little 13-minute rant, put some thought into these 6 things. And now, again, these are just some of our thoughts on 6 things from Bill's perspective that have been takeaways from top producers. I agree with them. I did add all in. And while I was on the call with Bill, and Bill has a podcast named All In, which you guys should all subscribe to, it is one of those things that universally, I have never met someone that closes over 100 loans a year, 200, 300, 400. They're just not all in. They're not dabbling in the mortgage business. They're all in. And so, that's like, have I ever met someone that's pretty crappy at time blocking that closes a lot of loans? Yeah, not sustainably, they crash, but I have met people that are a mess with time management, closing a lot of business. And that's the other thing is I've met people in all walks of life that all of these things, we kind of go in and out. Like nobody in the mortgage business is a 9 or a 10 on all 6 of these things all the time. We kind of top producers that go in and out. Now I would say you do not have sustainable mortgage production if you don't nail number 3. Like, it's really simple. Leads are coming in. We close a lot of loans, leads turn off. We have a roller coaster ride in our business. There's no doubt that is, essential to your success. Todd, I want to spend a little time on creating efficiencies, but before I do that, any commentary, anything you want to call out on these?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The biggest challenge that people have when it comes to getting their job done is this whole idea of being proactive versus reactive, right? So that's the idea of time blocking, right? Is to schedule the time to actually do that job, right? And by schedule, it's literally write it on a calendar, right? Write it on your phone. So it's actually visual that this is what I'm going to do at that time, really as bumpers to your day and as a reminder to yourself. And I still feel like that's where a lot of us are struggling is, yeah, I want to do that. I'm going to block an hour to make my calls because, Bill and Dave said I should do it. And then instead you pick up the phone. It's not urgent. It's important. It could have gone to voicemail and you didn't actually let it go to the phone. And so you miss your time block because then all of a sudden, you had an appointment with a client or a realtor or whatever that was, and it takes you out of there. So you've got to make those non-negotiable. Think back to Josh Metal and his team every single day from 9 to 11 as a team. They are dialing and their phones are all forwarded to the receptionist. So they can't even get an inbound call to be distracted by it. And so think through as you're going through each of those. But from a time blocking perspective, I would say schedule it and then protect yourself from yourself. And that may be taking your phone and sticking it, your cell phone is sticking it in the bag so that you don't answer it. It may be, just working your desk phone because no one probably calls you on that anyway. Or just being okay letting it go to voicemail. Josh works out of his sent email box instead of his inbox. So if he's going to send an email, he doesn't see all those ones that have come in. He's ignoring those and he's just sending it from the sent box so he's not distracted. And so just think of tools of how you can be more efficient with these 7 things that Dave and Bill talked about. There's my 2 cents, Dave.
Yeah, well, let's think about the top producers are obsessed with picking up new efficiency skills and traits. And there's a perfect example how Josh is blocking the noise by working out of his sit mail. When I was shadowing Jeremy Forcier 2 weeks ago, who's one of the best prospectors in the mortgage industry, he was using Siri. Hey, Siri, call blank. Hey, Siri, call this person. You know, he was, again, a simple little tool, but a huge success thing. What are some other little ones that you can think of, Todd? Like call Siri, you know, turn off the noise by working out of your sent email. I've got a few more, but what else do you have?
You know, it's funny when you're talking about crave efficiency, because I've been totally trying to use Siri since then. And number one, it's forcing me to talk slower and a little bit more clearly. And it's also forcing me to, you know, again, think through how can I be more efficient. Well, I've tried to call people. Guess what? They're not actually in my contacts. So Siri can't call them. So you've got to figure out where are those gaps in efficiency in your day. And so I think it's again, getting clear on, you know, your number one, get clear on where you're trying to go vision wise, and then be okay and transparent with yourself where you're struggling. You know, you've got to spend that time at the end of the day and say, how did I do today? Because I do find that the best people are pretty introspective. They're going to take time to look and say, okay, I was going to make 28 dials today. How did I do? Oh, shoot. You know what? I only made 26. Okay. I said I was going to block off 2 hours for lead gen. How did I do? Oh gosh, I only did an hour, or, oh my gosh, I did none. Right. And look at that to, you know, to see, but from an efficiency perspective, you know, I think it's becoming a ninja in whatever CRM it is that you use, so that you know who to call. You know, my CRM always had next call date, so I always knew who I was calling. I could just sort by that. So I think that that's sort of a ninja trick. I knew people who did that on spreadsheets, so don't feel like you have to have a great CRM. And, you know, I always quote Dave Savage, the best CRM is the one you use. So don't start asking down below, what CRM should I buy? That doesn't matter. Just get one and start dialing, and make sure your people earn it. So you're going to have to, what I would say is, if you're going to crave efficiency, you're going to spend time. So just like I said, I had to actually start putting more of my contacts into the phone so I could be more efficient the next time I call them with Siri. You're going to have to make sure that your CRM is dialed in now, schedule time block, as Bill said. And then so that way, the next time when it comes time to make those calls, you can be more efficient with those calls. I can tell you that, you know, again, I'll talk about Josh again. Ironically, he and I spoke a couple times yesterday, and it just really boils down to is he knows exactly who to call because it's in his CRM every day. His team knows exactly who they're going to call because it's in their CRM every day. And, you know, if you're not set up for that, then you're struggling to go through and figure out what that list is. Or you're figuring out, just like Jen said, hey, call your N and your O's, right? Make it easy on yourself versus thinking, okay, how do I sort out to see who's got a rate in the 5s? You know, don't worry about that. Just pick up the phone and start dialing, but come up with that system is what my suggestion would be, Mr. Savage.
Yeah. So another efficiency that I am seeing top producers do is the video text that we talk about. In fact, it was super cool. There was this girl standing by our booth. I walked up, she's like, oh, Dave Savage, been wanting to talk to you. And she went right into, I got a story to tell you. And she told a story of how she watched the Brian Manning interview. She recently went to a realtor networking event, and she followed up with that realtor networking event with text-to-text video. Hey, it was really nice meeting with you. She has obviously been following Todd Duncan because she goes, and I got 4 high trust interviews. And one of those was a whale agent that's already given her a referral. Text, video, hyper local, hyper personal. You don't need to buy any other technology. You've got a phone, you know, put it against the wall and send a relevant video to a realtor or a client. So again, top producers, they hear that and they do that. And then they do it consistently. You know, so that was another one. I'll share one more and then throw it back to you, Todd. And I'm going to share this next one. Yes, I'm Mr. Mortgage Coach. So I'm going to talk about total cost analysis, but it's true. I mean, you talk to top producers that use Mortgage Coach. Yes, they use it because it's a sales advantage. It improves conversion. They get referrals. There's no doubt. That's a why. But you ask the best of the best, and those because it saves me time. And Jeremy Forcier put it really well recently in an interview that I did with him, where he said, for every 5 minutes in Mortgage Coach, it saves me 30 minutes. And he talked about how like 5 to 10 of those minutes were writing up emails and, you know, sending multiple fee worksheets, the back and forth. So he's like, that could be 5 to 15 minutes of time savings. And then he talked about, and you know what? When I create that TCA, I deliver it to the family. I have conversations because I like to talk to people, but I have less double talk. And everybody involved in the decision understands it. So it saves time and it saves, confusion conversations. And then he said, you know what? Also, because part of his process is he gives the TCA, he gives a link, and he also, his processor has a link. So he's like, my team knows what I said and what I presented to the client. So he's like, at least 30 minutes of savings. 5 minutes of mortgage coach saves me 30 to 45 minutes. So again, I say that, yeah, I'm Mr. Mortgage Coach, but guys, this is what the top producers do. So I would push you as you're trying to close the year strong and you're trying to plan to go to the next level, that make Mortgage Coach a habit, learn how to talk to Sari in a way that she listens, do text video, and then of course there's other stuff. What else, Todd?
Well, I'll give 2 success stories to kind of talk about that and sort of talk about how maybe 1.5 success stories. One's a success story and one is how I'm a believer too and I'm implementing that. And I'll start with that one. I spent an hour yesterday training a new team member who's an assistant to some of the team members on how to use Mortgage Coach. That's an efficiency, right? So instead of the loan officer now setting up the TCA, I taught her how I would set up the TCA so she can set it up for the loan officer and get them that launch, and then they can record the video and send it back. We also take the link from the TCA and put in the CRM. So just like Dave talked about, Jeremy, I'm pointing over to Dave's picture in our Zoom. I should probably just point straight at him. Just like Jeremy said, hey, my processor has a copy of the link. There's a field in our CRM. And again, think about it. If you can't change the fields in your CRM, pick some field you're not using that has the TCA link. So at any point, someone on the team can pop it open, look at it and say, oh yeah, that's the rate that they quoted and that the person chose when they said they took strategy number 3. So think about your process and how you can be more efficient. Like look at your last 3 loans you closed and then go through. Ideally, you go through with the people on your team who are part of it, but at least go through it yourself, ask your clients questions about how it went, and look for areas where you can save your time in that process. Was there a call that you made that you could have had a team member make? Was there a call you received because you weren't proactive, right? If you're not doing scheduled update calls like as part of an ideal week, then guess what? You're going to get called whenever that person's thinking about you. But if they know you're going to call on a certain day, I don't care what day of the week it is, whether it's Monday or Friday or whatever, somewhere in between, is the proactivity. What can I do proactively or have my team do proactively that'll save me time? And again, it comes back to this idea of review. And if you take the time to review, you'll get there. And then the other part is, again, I'm continuing to practice what I preach. My other success story was one of my team members was meeting with the leader of a 20+ person real estate team in the office. I stopped by, introduced myself. And the comment he made to me was, well, I had already met with this other person that we were going to go with, and they're a great team, a team I totally respect here in town. And nobody ever followed up. So again, it comes back to the idea, you got to schedule your next call. And so what I did the next day was, because I was assuming that the loan officer who met with him was going to follow up. When he heard that, I sent him a video text. Hey, it's me, Todd Bookspan. Hey, it was great meeting yesterday. And it was like a 30-second video. And it was so impactful to him that apparently he actually played my video for his whole team. Well, guess what? We weren't even the preferred lender at that time, but think about that. He already set us up to look really good, and you guys can do the same thing. So just there's my 2 cents, Dave.
Love your 2 cents. So I'm not gonna skip over radiate confidence. I'm gonna be pretty brief about it because this is just my thought. Like, confidence is not something you can fake in an authentic, attractive way. Like, people that are attractively confident, they have that because of what they do. They do what they say they're going to do. They know it. They work hard. They know it. Through that work hard, through those repetitions of the total cost analysis, their confidence grows. So the confidence happens through your skills and your capabilities and doing it. So I'm just going to be like, it's true that the best of the best radiate confidence, but it's not even yet. There's no doubt when you make more money, you become more confident. The bigger your paycheck, the more you're like, look at me. And by the way, the more fun you're having with that money that you're making, the more lifestyle you have. But all of that happened because of what they do, the skills that they have. So all I'm going to do is just like, whatever your list is, and hopefully some of you guys will share it. Like, hey, my biggest strength, my biggest weakness. You'll make your list. You'll grow your confidence through doing. But let's talk about track, and then let's close out with some examples of all in, because I've got a couple all in examples that I want to close out with. But tracking. Now, when Bill talked about this, he mentioned Win by Noon, and there's, Todd, I'm going to leave it to you to talk about how Win by Noon fits into track. But he also had a picture of Jungo, the CRM, the company that we were presenting to uses Jungo, and he was just like, use your CRM. And there are so many good CRMs out there. You know, people ask me what's the best one. It's the one that you use, and of course the one that integrates with Mortgage Coach. So you can go to the Mortgage Coach partners page on our website and see who we integrate with, and we think those are the best CRMs. But why don't you speak to track, and then let's close out with like 5 minutes on what it means to be all in, and what are some examples of being all in.
No, I love that. And I've started to use the word record instead of track, right? Because I feel like you've got to record. Like I almost feel like it's, you know, you're creating this history of what you did. Because history, right, is the whole idea that success leaves clues, and that you've got to spend time to figure it out. And so Dave mentioned it a little bit earlier. I think the biggest challenge that we have is that most of us only are looking at our paycheck, right? Our closed transactions. And for years, everyone has always talked about, for sure, their application to closed ratio, right? Because the number one thing to do if you're not generating more leads is convert at a higher rate. And so you've got to look and see, where am I weak compared to everybody else, and not worry about that as much as, hey, where am I this month versus last month? Where am I this quarter versus last quarter? Where am I this quarter versus year to date? Hey, where am I this quarter versus historically? Because oftentimes what I'll find is when I'm talking to a loan officer or a real estate agent for that matter, who is struggling to get the growth that they want, oftentimes it comes back to that number one, they don't have a clear vision on what they're trying to get. And they don't know because they haven't actually recorded their activities and their results to get there. And so I would always say, you know, start with, hey, what is it that I want to be recording and tracking every month? And at a minimum, you should be looking at the results side of it, right? Leads, applications, pre-approved clients who are going out and shopping, and then closed. And then I would encourage you, and I think the biggest difference that Win by Noon users would say that they've made is now that they're tracking the activities, right? Who am I calling? Who am I talking to? Who am I meeting with? And how many of those activities, depending on my business, do I need to get where I'm going? Again, someone who's face-to-face a lot is going to look at how many people did I meet with this week in order to get a closed transaction. Someone who is just using the phone is going to look at how many people do I have to call. And then like the super ninjas way overthink it. I wouldn't think about overthinking it. They're like, oh, here's my personal referrals versus here is my internet leads. And then trying to figure out, well, how many internet leads do I need in order to get one lead or internet leads to get one person to talk to me to get an application and to get one closed, and really look at their business. I would tell you again, I'll quote Josh again. Josh told me yesterday, they're 12% conversion from their online leads, right? He knows his number. He knows exactly what his profitability is for a loan. He knows what his cost of acquisition is. He knows all of that. And so I think in the end, get clear on what you want to record. I would encourage you to look at activities and results, not just your results. And if anyone wants help with it, go to winbynoon.com/calendar. I've got a webinar next Tuesday or Wednesday on how to do this with Win by Noon, but you don't need to use Win by Noon to be in there. You don't need to be a Win by Noon user to jump on the webinar. But ultimately, I'll walk you guys through what we track and why we track it.
Yeah, and for all you Win by Noon users, remember you can track your total cost analysis. Make sure at a minimum you're tracking your quality conversations and your TCAs. So guys, let's close out with they're all in, because this is, to me, the universal, every top producer is all in. You don't get there, you don't stay there if you're not all in. And there were a couple examples that I'm going to call out over the past 3 days. Well, actually, this one was over the weekend, that are just examples of loan officers that are all in. So I've interviewed Craig Spence a couple times. He is a super successful loan officer. I think he's going to close a little over 240 loans this year. And here, this guy reaches out to me. I think he called me on Friday texted me and called me, sent me an email over the weekend, and he's like, Dave, I just finished this, top producer retreat. I really am clear that I want to double my production and go from 200 families to 400. And which interviews that you've done would be most helpful to me? So I mean, that's all in. The guy is clear. He's got new vision. He's going to the next level. And here's a guy that's closed over 200 loans a month, and he's still learning. He's like, who can I learn from? Who can I do a site visit with? And he's obsessed with this. So guys, that's what all in is. And I did want to showcase that story because one, I decided that it was such a great question, and I took time to answer it. And I wrote him an email like, hey, if you're going to go from 200 to 400, it's all about leadership and team building. You know how to manufacture a loan. You know how to have a great borrower conversation. He's delivered thousands of total cost analysis. He knows how to deliver great experience. It's all about team building and leadership. So I referred him to a bunch of those videos. One more story, and then Todd, I'll give it to you for some commentary. Shayla Gifford reached out to me, sent me an email, and she's like, Dave, this Friday, which is today, I'm going to be sending an email to all my coaches and a personal video with a focus. What's the one mortgage coach video that I should have everybody watch as a requirement? And so again, that's leadership. That's all in. One more example, Manny Corral, 300 unit a year producer. From stage, when I was doing the interview, he actually called out the Shayla Gifford interview and said, I've watched it 5 times. He's like, everybody in the audience, there was like 200 people in the audience, maybe 3. And he's like, most important thing. So all in people, they're learning. Leaders are learners. They're listening to audiobooks. They're reading, if they're good readers. They're listening to interviews of other top producers. They are all in. And I would just ask you, are you all in? Are you all in at whatever the success level that you want? So Todd, last 4 minutes, back to you, brother.
Well, it's funny, a couple of things. One is if you haven't listened to Bill Hart's All In podcast, you should. I was listening to it last night when I was picking up food for my children. It's really great. He's got just different people from different industries. So it's not, although he's got some great LOs on there, he's interviewing people from outside of the loan industry, which you can learn so much from. I was originally going to say your action plan here is to go back to that first video or the first post that Dave showed all the videos he said and suggested to people to watch. But then I also thought about what you just said about Manny. And it's that whole idea of, do I need to watch 10 videos or should I watch one video 10 times and become an expert, right? So think about it from an implementation perspective. I think if you're going to watch a video like the Shayla Gifford video, which was awesome. I had like 3 pages of notes while I was on the interview with her. What I would say is that get really good and finish up and figure out what it is that you're going to implement as a result of watching that interview and implement it first before you go listen to the next one. The problem is I think Dave's done such a good job of putting so much great content in here that if you're watching 3 videos in here a week and doing nothing with any of it, then at some point that would maybe be considered not the best use of your time. I think you'll grow regardless from hearing it and absorbing it, but be intentional about it. And if you don't have a great process, right, with your clients or people who experience, then watch that video and let's go with Manny's number. Let's watch it a minimum 5 times, take notes, absorb it, and then implement it.
Yeah, and just let's talk about the right amount of content consumption. I mean, I've always, my rhythm has been an hour to 2 hours a day of reading, consuming. A few years back, I decided that, I'm going to reduce my, call it content consumption to an hour a day, and I'm going to delegate an hour a day to creating content. So an hour create, an hour consume. And I'm not here to say, guys, like we create a lot of content in Mortgage Coach Land. In fact, we just kicked off our IGTV. So we now have 3 interviews where we're taking highlights. I've done like a full hour interview with people. I took, 9 minutes of what we thought was a real highlight from Shayla Gifford, and we put that in IGTV, Instagram. So but I do think when it comes to mortgage coach content, I think if you're a mortgage professional that's all in and you're not watching at least one of our interviews a month, I think you're missing it. I think you are missing the boat. I would recommend as a best practice, one a week. Like take content from our YouTube channel, content that we have, and put it in your playlist, and one a week. You know, for those of you that are new or that you're working on a particular skill, maybe there's more, but I don't know. I just think, you know, I think the best of the best are consuming an hour of content a day. You know, I think that's just like they're making sure they're getting their prospecting in. They're making sure that they're reading, listening to content that helps them go to the next level. Todd, your thoughts, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Well, my thoughts are go back to the time blocking piece, right? I totally agree with you, Dave. I mean, the content piece is so key if you're going to learn and grow. And for me, it's just make a weekly plan, right? So, you know, every week I'm sitting down typically on Saturday or Sunday morning while my family's asleep and I'm drinking my coffee. I'm laying out my ideal week for the next week. Everything that's already I'm committed to is written in there. And then I'm looking for those times. When is it that I'm going to spend my time learning, and think through just from an energy perspective, where you can have the most energy to do it. You know, most people are morning people, 80% of you. So don't be listening to content at 10 o'clock at your desk. Be listening to content, you know, maybe in the morning when you're out running or at the gym or whatever that is, or maybe in the afternoon on your drive home, so that you can protect that other time to go. But I think that that's great leadership, Dave, to get us all focused on that 1 hour of content today.
Right on, guys. So we're going to close out. I've got Bill Hart on the screen since he inspired my 30 minutes of today's call. Make sure you add all into your listening list. He was really advocating that everybody listen to the Jay O'Brien.
What I listened to last night. It's great.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but it's on my weekend playlist. So Bill was telling everybody from stage, it's a must check out. So guys, we hope you got value from today. If you did, give us a like. Share this with your mortgage friends. Invite other mortgage friends to the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind. Connect with Todd Bookspan. Go to Win by Noon. Check out the Win by Noon Facebook group. And for those of you who are going to be at Sales Mastery, I think we have one more call before we're all on site at Sales Mastery together. But remember, if you're going to be at our Champagne Toast, to let us know. And Todd Bookspan, bro, appreciate you, brother.
Always great being here. Thank you guys for all being part of our community and joining in today.
Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic day.
All right. We'll see you soon.